So, if you recall, and I think either that was his last show or the next to last show. I can't remember.
No, after that, he had to lay off for 2 years because he had a non-compete contract, and then he started the internet show, Midnight in the Desert.
Yeah, I do recall that. I've actually talked to Heather Wade on her show a couple times as a call-in. But I wrote. He asked for people, go ahead and write me the story, the spooky story that you're wanting to relay and tell on Dark Matter, because he wanted the best of the best. So at the time, I was working probably 60 or 70 hours a week, directing sleep labs. That was my other part, other life that I led in the medical field. I was heavily into directing and managing a bunch of sleep labs, but that's just chatter in the story. So just to explain why I was working so much, and I wrote into his sent him an email with the story. So I was all prepped. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be called or anything like that. And the night of the Spooky Matter story, I had worked almost all damn day long. I usually got up about 5:30 every morning, and I'd probably be traipsing into the house probably 7 or 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
Literally. That really stressed me out for sleep. But anyway, I said, well, tonight's the night. So I don't know what in the world I was doing that night. But I fell asleep, and I fell into a hard sleep, and I had my phone on to where I could hear it. And I got a strange phone call from Arizona area code. And I was like, I bet I got a call from Art Bell to tell that story. You want to hear the story?
I do. And that's one thing I will say about Art. Anytime he called you, you never had the same phone number. But go ahead.
Well, all I can say was from Arizona. I had it on my iPhone for years, and then I changed out iPhones and I lost the number. So I have no clue if it belonged to them. But it happened that night, and it just happened to be that area code. So I couldn't tell you what. That's just my personal story for myself. So here's the story, and it actually is a Shadow Man story.
Okay.
Happened. It doesn't involve any patients or anything, so no problem relating this story. Through the course of my career, I have come across countless shadow men. I could, if I maybe in the 100 plus range, just being in a hospital, not anywhere else, just being in a hospital, and usually after someone dies, I will see these, whatever the heck these things are. So one of the duties as a respiratory therapist, and I can't even tell you how long ago this was, but one of the duties as a respiratory therapist is obviously you check oxygen within the hospital. You go through every room, whether they're empty, occupied, or whatever, and check, one, is there oxygen in there? Do we need to dismantle and take out, certain items that for whatever reason, if the patient was discharged, kind of deal, take out that stuff. Go in, reconcile the patients that are on oxygen and make sure they're on what we have on our charts, and then reconcile it with the actual orders to see if there's discrepancy, what's right, what's wrong, kind of stuff. And then occasionally we'd find people that we have no clue that were on oxygen or are on oxygen, and then we reconcile that and yada, yada, yada. So one night I was doing my oxygen rounds in the middle of the night, usually probably between midnight and 3 a.m. One night I jumped off the elevator, and I was engrossed, and I was carrying this clipboard, and I had all these patients, and I was looking at where I needed to start, and I said, well, I'll just start right here. First room I come to, go in, and the way the hospital set up was in a T fashion, and you walk down the hallway toward the the end of the hallway, and to the right's the nursing desk, and you got a right turn and a left turn, and both turns have patient rooms. So I made my way down the hallway and got to the nursing desk, and I had my nose in the chart, or in my, not in the chart, to the list of oxygen patients that were on my clipboard. And all of a sudden, I come around this thing. I can't tell you what it was, but it runs past me on my left side. I mean, it was huge. Whatever it was a dark mass. Runs past me, literally, and by me. And I flip around and see what the heck that was, and it's gone. And I look over, and nobody's at the nurse's desk, so I have no witnesses to say, hey, you did this or whatever. But it's, I was literally within a few footsteps of turning to, for whatever reason, I was about ready to turn left anyway. This lady jumps out of the room, help me, my husband just fell, help me, he's not responding. Run in there. Patient, I didn't see the patient, so what I did see was just a foot sticking out from under the footboard. And we coded that patient, and he never did make it. But that's not the. I'm going to tell you a series of. I'm going to tell you two. But obviously, just to relate that, when I seen the stuff in the hospital, these shadow people, no sound, no nothing, and I've heard countless shadow people, even from my own family members that work in the healthcare field, have told me basically the same stuff about shadow men. But there was another patient that I saw, this shadow person, one of the respiratory therapist duties in ICU, especially on long-term ventilator patients where you're physically using mechanical ventilation on these patients. We do what's called AM blood gases, unless the doctor absolutely refuses to allow that to happen. But with long-term patients, they have what's called an arterial line. What it is a semi-permanent, sort of like an IV line, but not. It's threaded in through the radial artery, and it has a stopcock. I've actually got a scar from when I was on the ventilator for so long from my art line, actually. And then I'm looking at it. But what it does is it saves from sticking your artery, because you only have so many arteries in your body. And if you monkey that up or booger that up a little bit, you lost an artery and then you lost circulation to half your hand. So they opt for doing these for people that are on ventilators for long term in an ICU situation to facilitate getting serial ABGs and reducing the trauma to the patient. And there's a specific thing that you have to do. It's part of the story, and I know it's really deep in the weeds, but it adds to the story, and it tells you why the end of it is. So, forgive me for being so long, but I have to tell you the reason why certain things happen. With this patient, it's like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. The shift change. So here I am walking into this room, and you have to use sterile procedure to obtain this arterial blood. And there's a lot of things that you got. You got what's called a sample syringe, and you got an aspiration syringe. And you also have to be gloved in sterile gloves to do this in the sterile field. And you throw the patient's arm on top of the provided sterile filled piece of paper that's in the kit. So you're drawing out blood, and here I am drawing out blood to get what's called heparinized blood. They'd run a drip heparin in the blood on the arterial side to keep it from clotting off at the distal end, or meaning the end that's actually in the patient, into the patient from clotting off, the blood clotting off. So the reason is the reason why my attention is at this micro space. And one of the other things, part of the story is in ICU, about once a month, the shifts that we rotate in and out of, we would have a potluck dinner. And it just so happened to be the time for the potluck dinner. So as I'm doing this sterile procedure, which takes about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, give or take, And I got to the point where I pulled out the syringe, and I thought this was a nurse walking in around, and I knew the nurse that had this patient. And I started talking to this nurse, and I was saying, "Well, what are you bringing for the potluck dinner?" And this particular nurse was notorious not to talk to you. She gets so engrossed in it, and she's sort of hard of hearing. And I'm sitting there talking to her, and she never responds. I was like, "Oh, well, that's just so and so," and kind of deal, and just dismissed it. So I'm finished obtaining the sample blood I was going to go analyze, replace everything I need to replace, make sure everything's working and functioning to leave the patient be. So as I'm pulling the paper, styrofoam paper out from under and kind of crumpling up, I'm looking up to look at this nurse and make eye contact with this nurse, because I can still see something out of my peripheral vision. So I'm kneeled beside this bed, and she's on the other side of the bed of the patient. I see this black mass in front of me. Black mass hadn't moved in a while, probably 2 minutes or something. And I thought I was talking to an actual person. So I got about up to the top of the abdomen on this, whatever the hell this thing was. This thing literally, before I could get my eyes on the shoulders, swooped up under the damn bed and disappeared.
Like vanished.
No, it's like it got sucked into something. It was like literally got pulled or dragged up underneath the damn bed. I literally looked a couple times and was like, "What the hell was that?" And then I looked at the ICU, and why it's so funny is there was a lady there that's an old nursing lady and a really good friend of mine was sitting there, and she was a short little lady. God bless her heart. She didn't see anything of it, so I don't have a witness. I was about ready to holler out and like, "Did you see that?" kind of deal. And obviously I have no witnesses for this. So I don't know what it was or what happened to it, but obviously I think 2 days later this patient had expired. So I honestly have no clue other than it was totally silent, and I saw it out of my peripheral vision. And I thought it was an actual nurse, and I'm like, that was one of the many times I had seen a shadow person. So there you go.
Yeah, boy, there's so many reports of shadow people too. I mean, and actually, I would never, if I dropped anything in the middle of the night, you know what, Shawn? It would lay on the floor next to the bed till the morning time, because I have always been paranoid to lean under, off the bed, to lean down by the side of the bed, because since I was a kid, I was always had a fear of a shadow man grabbing me and pulling me under the bed.
That reminds me of a story.
Well, I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Oh, geez. All right. This is from when I was a little kid, probably 5 or 6 years old. And at the time we lived, I've got two siblings, a brother and a sister, and living in this trailer court. And the trailer court the footprint of it was elongated, not a triangle, a rectangle, excuse me. Probably 18, 19 trailers, with two rows running up and down the side length of the rectangle of the footprint. But on the far end, on the short side of the rectangles, the short end, was a cemetery. And then on the right side, if you're looking at it from a perspective of coming in from the entrance of the trailer court, there was an addition of the same cemetery on the long side, on the right side of the trailer court. So, but both of them were connected by this one simple path that would go up and down on the right corner of it, right upper corner, and was lined with headstones and whatnot. So During the course of this, I was like 5 or 6 years